Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are watching us from. On behalf of the Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement and Water Policy Center, it gives me great pleasure to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished chair, Dr. Mirza Zulfiqur Rahman, speakers and participants who registered for the event. We are so glad that you could join us today at the NICE WPS International Conference on Post-Pandemic World Order, Navigating the New Normal. Throughout the 3 days conference, we will be having 30 sessions that will take place in 2 Zoom rooms simultaneously. We have around 150 experts and speakers joining us from 30 different countries who will be delivering their presentations and sharing their expertise with us. This is the 9th session of the conference. To chair and moderate this session, it's a real pleasure to have Dr. Mirza Zulfiqur Rahman, Associate at the Institute of Chinese Studies, the Diplomacy Division, Center for International Politics, Organization and Disarmament, School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Without any further ado, let me now request Dr. Rahman to moderate the session. Sir.
Thank you, Anushka. Thank you for the introduction. I hope I'm audible to everyone.
You there?
Yeah. So welcome to this session and thank you for participating in this session. It is a pleasure for me to be a moderator in this session. So this session basically has quite a mix of different presentations, which is a very curious mix of water issues around the world, as well as South Asian geopolitics and regionalism. So I'm definitely look forward to the interconnections between environmental issues and geopolitics and South Asian regionalism aspects, which will actually come out of this session. Without wasting much time, I would straight away like to actually talk about the session. Each speaker would have 12 minutes of presentation time, while we can go to a maximum of 15 minutes. So please, stick to the time so that we are able to accommodate all the speakers within the time frame that we have in this session. So I will actually unmute myself and give you a reminder at 12 minutes, and then you'll have another 3 minutes to go. So I would then, if there is any disturbance in the connection, you might like to switch off your videos so that we have a better connection. If in case you have some problems of hearing the voice or something, and that should solve the problem. And when you are coming on to speak, maybe then you can put on your video. I don't see any issues now, but if there are issues during the course of the session, maybe you can do that. So what I would do is that basically we'll go along with the flow of the program that has been given to me. So I would like to first invite Dr. Faisal Ahmed, Associate Professor, FORE School of Management, New Delhi, India, who's going to be speaking on water-related climate vulnerabilities and ocean diplomacy in South Pacific. So Dr. Faisal Ahmed, your floor is yours now.
Thank you, Dr. Zulfiqur. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So I'll be talking about one aspect, that is ocean diplomacy, right? Within that ocean diplomacy, I'll be speaking about how water-related vulnerabilities and how climate change-related vulnerabilities actually become part of the ocean diplomacy. And how do we look at that interrelationship? Means whenever a country tries to build its ocean diplomacy, does it talk only about geopolitical aspects, or does it also consider aspects which are other than that? For example, the case in point which I'll be talking about, which is based on my research, developing states which are in the Indo-Pacific region. Now, briefly explaining that what are the various types of challenges which are being faced by these countries, which especially relate to economic development, the traditional and non-traditional, security issues, and they also relate to the environmental sustainability issues. So there are several such issues which are there when it comes to the small island developing states. Now, on the environmental aspects, on the climate change and water related aspects, some of the key challenges that these countries have been facing, which can include, for instance, the rising sea level, which is a very common one, because of which many countries you see have been trying to build sea walls as well, though they require huge investment for that. And then there are changing precipitation pattern. A very unique thing which is happening is the change in precipitation pattern, which is actually leading to both drought as well as flood in the same place, in the same island. This is a very common phenomenon in the South Pacific small islands. Then there are the water related availability of, quality of water. Also, we have seen issues related to soil erosion, coastal inundation. There is a spread of water and vector-borne diseases across the island, which is very rampant. And coral reef damage is there, ocean acidification is there. So these are the challenges which are there. Of course, overfishing is there, where they have been talking about fish zoning, and also the unsustainable exploitation of the exclusive economic zones. So these things are there. Besides, there is a very serious issue of climate refugee as well. We are all familiar with that, like Kiribati president purchased land in Fiji. In case it becomes submerged in water, then the whole population has to be shifted from Kiribati to Fiji. So these are the basic challenges which has been there in the small island developing states. Now, also, they face some of the challenges related to the cost of trade and transport, which can be economic fragility, which can be lack of economies of scale, which can be supply side, constraints which they have been facing. Now, we don't say that there aren't multilateral frameworks which are governing that, governing these things. There are multilateral frameworks. There have been rules. There have been regulations which have been governing it. For example, we talk about the Barbados Plan of Action, or the Mauritius strategy of implementation, or even the Samoa pathways. So there are certain international framework, the intergovernmental frameworks, which are working for these, to address these type of challenges. Now, let me just talk about why I have tried to link these two. Is when we look at the discourse on the Indo-Pacific, or when we look at the discourse, academic discourse I'm talking about, I'm not talking about policy discourse, I'm talking specifically about academic discourse. So in academic discourse, you find that there is a very, very negligible literature which is available on talking about, first, that is the small islands. Second, which tries to link the vulnerabilities faced by the small island through certain type of modeling methodologies or modeling techniques, by which some policy relevant solutions can be given to the governments of the South Pacific, or to the intergovernmental organizations. So there's a huge lack of academic discourse on this issue. Largely, when you start talking about Indo-Pacific region and look at the academic discourse, you'll find academic discourse. Now, these academic discourse can be confined to, for example, ASEAN centrality. There is a discourse on Indo-Pacific geopolitics and ASEAN centrality. Also, there will be discourse which will be related to, China's role. So we see that China's role and its relations with neighbors, either through aid or through multilateral or infrastructural collaboration through the BRI, or even through loans through the Asian infrastructure investment banks. So these things though cannot be ignored, because even if the United States does not like it, there is no doubt that low and middle income economies who are potential beneficiaries of the BRI do have social as well as policy acceptance for BRI projects. Now, many low and middle income countries see BRI as a boon for them, and many countries in the South Pacific too, which is a point of the study here. Many countries in the South Pacific, they see BRI or any sort of aid flow coming from different countries, including China, which is normally poised to become the largest donor of aid in the South Pacific, replacing Australia. maybe this year or next year. South Pacific also is no exception to these things. The third point in the discourse that we generally notice is about the Quad, which is nowadays coming up, is a quadrilateral security dialogue, which has India, Japan, the United States, and Australia. But India has always remained a little milder on, Quad, never given so much proactive stance on Quad. But I believe that too much reliance on Quad may not strategically work out, because we look at the composition of the Quad and the reliability in terms of security guarantees. For instance, Australia, which is they are seeking participation in Malabar exercises, and though it is keen, but yet I'll say that it's yet too cautious for such a role in the Indian Ocean region. United States, for example, it has shown a lot of withdrawal syndrome, right from the VFA agreement with the Philippines to the, which was related to the South China Sea, to the Guam issue, which we have seen where they have called off their continuous presence and then restored it back. So right from the TPP, which is Trans-Pacific Partnership, which President Obama strongly pushed for, to the trade war, to the what we call as mentioning China as an adversary in its national security and defense strategies, there is no doubt that United States itself is searching for a role in the Asia-Pacific or the Indo-Pacific region. It is itself searching for a role. So for smaller economies, United States had lacked the trust of being a reliable security partner. See, when we look at the whole region, we cannot just talk about few countries and their reliance on the United States. We have to look at even low-income countries, the middle-income countries, a lot of such countries which are smaller economies, which are transition economies. How do they see the United States as a reliable partner or not? Also, if you look at Japan, we'll find that Japan has competing claims in the East China Sea, but generally avoids any aerial survey of the Senkaku Island, because recently we have seen that the Japanese government, backed out their own proposed plan to do so in the Senkaku Island. So Japan doesn't in any case want to annoy China. So how strongly Quad stands for fulfilling its security mandates is still remain a question, I think. And the last point in the academic discourse, there are a lot of other points, but I've just selected a few of them specifically to talk on. And then we move ahead with the, small islands. So the last point is, which comes up is the IORA, which is the Indian Ocean Rim Association. Now, if you look at Indian Ocean Rim, the biggest question in the Indian Ocean Rim that who can be the net security provider in the Indian Ocean. So I've largely argued in so many articles which I have been writing on this issue that by any geographic, demographic, or by any perspective or standards you see, whether it is historical or otherwise, it should be India which is a net security provider in the Indian Ocean. No one else other than India can help sustain a very stable strategic environment in the region. Now, for that, there are a lot of efforts that have to be made, and these are related to, investment from India in naval infrastructure, in naval surveillance, in counter-piracy measures, and of course, the naval modernization program. All these things are relevant. Now, but if you look at the discourse, what I'm talking about, which is pertinent to economic ocean diplomacy in the South Pacific, you find that academic discourse is very negligible. But which is very important, because a lot of countries are actually giving aid to the South Pacific countries. But for what purposes? Are these aid actually channelized? Are these countries able to build their a stronger ocean diplomacy or a stronger ocean diplomatic gravity actually with these countries? So for any country which is giving aid to the South Pacific and also wants to enhance its ocean diplomacy initiatives, we came out with certain proposals. And these proposals were actually based on research which applied mathematical modeling. And then we came out with a solution that what exactly, instead of investing in so many issues, countries have to segregate and find out that what are the top 4, 5, 6 issues on which actually they need to divert their aid to. So countries have to be selective in that, and that will also benefit those small islands. Because if we give a smaller amount of aid to at least 15, 20 different activities, perhaps that doesn't help the small islands in even materializing a single project. So, so we did a study in which we tried to find out that what are the enablers of ocean diplomacy. So we found out at least 12 enablers and then grouped it under a 3 different heads. So we call it a geo-economic enablers, geo-strategic enablers, and also environmental and healthcare enablers. So these are 3. So in the geo-economic enablers, we have like trade capacity building, right? So this is pertinent to the economic aspects, which is trade capacity building, which is also part of the ocean diplomacy. Now developing the blue economy, providing aid for trade. Aid for trade was a 2005 initiative of the WTO Hong Kong Ministerial, by which countries have been providing aid for trade to enhance trade related and export infrastructure in low income countries and even developing countries. And then the 4th one is the strengthening sub-regional cooperation. So there are 4 these set of enablers which we call as geo-economic enablers. I'll just repeat it: trade capacity building, developing the blue economy, providing aid for trade, and the fuzzy AHP, which is a fuzzy-based analytical hierarchy process mathematical modeling. And based on this modeling, we came out to the conclusion that there are the top 5 enablers that can potentially drive, ocean diplomacy efforts in the small islands. They can be like, the first one is the strengthening sub-regional cooperation. The second will be providing aid for trade. The third will be trade capacity building. The 4th is about the vector and the waterborne diseases, how do we abate this. And the 5th one is managing the water-related ecosystem. So I'll conclude it by saying that ocean diplomacy is okay, but there is a lack of academic studies on ocean diplomacy, and more academic study on ocean diplomacy, incorporating the climate change aspects as well, can actually help countries decide and decipher where actually they want their resources in terms of aid or in terms of ODA or any other assistance in South-South cooperation or others. Where do they want their resources to be diverted and to which particular aspects, so that it is helpful for the low and middle income economies as well. So this is all from my side. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Faisal, for sticking to your time and for the excellent presentation. We will go on to the next speaker now, who is Professor Ghaida Aburumman, Isra University President, Assistant for International Affairs, Executive Director, Continued Education and Community Service Center from Jordan. Professor Ghaida Aburumman.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm here. Hello, everybody. Thank you for Nepal Institute, and thank you for organizing this important conference. At first, before starting my presentation, that's Jordan, who do not know, it's one of the Arab countries. That's we are located in the western of Asia, and we are bordered by Saudi Arabia to the south east of our borders, Iraq from northeast, Syria from north, and Palestine and Israel from the west. So we are in an area that's hottest spot zone in the Middle East of different conflicts around Jordan. The capital is Amman, and the area of my country is 89,342 square kilometers. Our population growth rate increased sharply due to unexpected demographic changes due to high population growth rates due to influx of different refugees from surrounding countries. Now we are 11 million. Directly, there is a sharp increase in the population. Now I will give an idea about Jordan, current Jordan's water situation. but we can see that if you can, I can make the PowerPoint presentation from my side, because I am now a host of this session. They give me the host of this session. So you can remove your presentation because it's so big, and I shorten it because of the limited time, just 15 minutes. Thank you very much. I will share now my presentation. We can see, Excellencies, that's here, okay? I will give just an idea about more than half of the world's population will live in the next 15 years until 2035 in an areas of water shortage. And that West Asia, including Arabian Peninsula, will be one of the most water-stressed areas, around where about 90% of its population in areas suffering from lack of water. The fact that we see that's water stressed by countries by 2040, here we are located here in Jordan. This is the location of Jordan. It is in the Western Asia. Future conflicts will be linked in some studies with the water shortage, which is expected to affect 2/3 of the world's population. And there are 10 regions in all over the world that are conflicts that could be turned into an armed conflict by controlling of water and its resources. Middle East is at the top of these areas. We can see that there is an American report, it's a recent American report, identified the 10 regions in the world that will witness severe problem around water. Most of these are in the Middle East, and we can see that they are the risk areas of water-related conflicts are my country, Jordan, Palestine, and Israel. It's a hotspot zone. Dangerous areas that's maybe in danger, maybe Tigris, Euphrates, and the Arabian Gulf. Areas of water tension that's likely to enter danger zone by 20 to 25 years, they are Egypt and Sudan. If I report in 2018 on some important points about Arab world, we can see 19 of Arab countries fall under the water poverty line. At present, 50 million Arab citizens suffer from lack of potable water, and 80 million suffers from water pollution and inadequate sanitation. If we compare the amounts of the water in 1970s to now, the annual per capita water consumption was 3,300 meter cubic in 1970. Now, in some of the countries, it's 90, which is give you that we are less the water poverty line, and all expected some of the Arab countries will be fall below the water poverty by 2035. What is the escalation of water crisis? This is due to, I will see just main two problems: high population, misuse of available water use, and pollution that makes most of our water resources unsuitable for human uses. We can see that there is a problem in the Middle East. The Middle East is in general, and Levant in particular, are among the most important areas of conflicts. They are of a great importance because of widening gap between the growing population and the scarcity of available water resources, and lack of adequate coordination and cooperation between different parties. The water problem and the main sources and focal points of these conflicts over water sources in the region revolve around 4 main basins. Generally, these basins are Jordan River Basin, Litani River Basin, River Tigris, and Euphrates River Basin. It is very important to see that these are the conflicts. Here is Jordan, and we can see that we are in hot spot zone around Jordan. Because it's behind these conflicts, that's the most important source of upstream of water located outside the Arab land. And there is a decrease in the relative share water amounts to Arab countries. We can see that the upstream of Euphrates and Tigris rivers are located outside the Arab land. This makes over 85% of Arab water resources under the control of non-Arab parties, which can use water as a political and economic tool against our interests. What's about my country's situation? As I told you recently, Jordan faces an unexpected demographic change. Due to high population growth rates and to the influx of refugees from surrounding countries, we were not prepared for these changes at all levels and impacts. We can see that our refugees, they are coming from Palestine refugees in 1948. Then we faced Iraqi war refugees, 2003, and now Syrian refugees, 2011. And these camps of refugees have a sharp increase in the population with the country with limited water resources, and not just in our water resources. Mainly, all our resources are limited, so we face a problem due to this sharp increase in the population growth rate. Syrian refugees crisis has resulted in extreme pressure, seriously impacting water infrastructure and services in the country, and that without immediate major interventions and diffusion of capital and man, Jordan will, and my country, Jordan, we experience serious degradation in services, increased level of waterborne diseases, and an inability of large proportion of the population of the country to lead healthy and productive lives. The concentration of Syrian refugees mainly in the north of Jordan. This is in Mafraq area, where is located the biggest camp of refugees, Azatari camp, and we have in Amman, then other countries, but the most important in the north of Jordan. As we see here, these are the distribution of refugees in Jordan, Syrian mainly refugees. In addition to that, unfortunately, we are semi-dry country. Our water resources are under great stress with our annual rainfalls less than 200 millimeter. Over 92% of the land, most of our land, so it's desert. We can see that 92 of Jordan is a desert. This is a problem. We can see that mostly of most of our 91% of our area faces less than 100 millimeter per year for the rainfall, annual rainfall. The deteriorating regional conditions have led to waves of hundreds of thousands of these refugees. And we can see that this brings Jordan from the world's 10 water poorest countries to 4th, and now, unfortunately, we are the 2nd water poorest country in the world, according to the ranking of the United States and our Ministry of Water and Irrigation. Of course, this is according to comparing with our population and with the area. We are the 2nd poorest country, water country in the world. So, country water per capita, we have 88% below the international water poverty line, which is 1,000 meter cubic annually. This annual per capita water supply just less than 90 meter cubic. Now we're hosting nearly 1.3 million of Syrian refugees, so that's more than 80% of whom live in host communities. This has insignificant strains on the country's system and added pressure not just on water. We have sanitation, electricity, solid waste management, health, education. In all sectors, we face a problem. Jordan, in addition to that, we share surface and groundwater sources with neighboring countries. We're the only external surface water flow from river, which is called Yarmouk River, and Jordan River to Dead Sea. I know that most of you, all of you know about Jordan River. In 1940s and 1950s, 1.2 billion meter cubic flowed annually in the Jordan River, but now the flow does not exceed 150 million cubic meter because of excessive use, diversion, damming of the Jordan River's water in neighboring countries. We can see that this river has considered not just historically, but it has many problems. Although it is not equal to Euphrates River in terms of water quantity, it has a deeper political sensitivity. The source of Jordan River is Syrian, Lebanese, highlands, and its water benefited from it 4 countries. They are Jordan, Syria, Palestine, and Israel. This is the upper Jordan River. We have until this is the map of Jordan River that 4 countries get benefit from this river. It nowadays provides 25% of needs of Jordan, my country, with a population growth rate of 3.7 per year, expanding of irrigation projects and influx of refugees make us in a shortage and a severe problem. Sadly, in the last 50 years, Jordan River's annual flow had dropped from more than 1 billion to 30 million cubic meter. With Israel, Jordan, and Syria, each grabbing as much clean water as they can, it's ironically the sewage that's keeping the river alive today. Such much of the river is a closed military zone, and the limits of public, most people simply do not know the real situation of the river that's drying up. And responding to years of advocacy, national governments and municipalities are taking first step to prevent dumping or leaking sewage into the river. New treatment plants are in development in Jordanian, Israeli, and Palestinian communities, often with the financial support of international communities like USAID and some other countries. The limited water resources in Jordan due to main dependence of the amount of rainfall, which is characterized by irregularity terms in terms of spatial and temporal distribution, which requires the assessment of these sources and the good management and use in an optimal manner to ensure their stability. Also, we face that the volume of evaporation last year, for example, exceeds 94% compared to 92 for a long term, which reflects the available water quantities. The vision involved a country of reliable, safe, drinkable water available to its people, and the strategy to achieve this include the management and the protection of our water resources. These are some important numbers. I will not read these numbers, but we have renewable, of course, water, surface and the ground, and non-renewable high salinity water and reclaimed water. Our surface water resources supplies.
You have 3 minutes left. You have 3 minutes left.
3 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, I will go to the most important thing, just some of the projects. In Jordan, we have, of course, we are using now, our water resources faces the problem, so we depend on treated wastewater as a source for agriculture. We are going now for the desalination because there is a problem, as I told you before. So desalination, but this costs a lot in Jordan. We have here two important projects that's taking the DC Amani project, which takes water from groundwater aquifer to, in the south of Jordan to the middle of Amman. This can help. And there was here a problem. There was an important project which is Dead Red Sea. You know that's Dead Red Sea. This is a project between Jordan, Israel, and Palestine. That's the 2C Canal plant pipeline, and this is runs from the coastal Aqaba in Jordan by Red Sea. We can see that environmentally the Dead Sea has an environmental problem, which is including sinkholes. These are sinkholes and receding of seashore because there is a decline in the amount of the water. The sea level is a shrinkage. There is a level in the shrinkage in its rate of level that's more than 1 meter per year. And we can see that the surface area also shrinks 30% in the last 20 years. So there is a big project between the three countries, but until now didn't see the light. The water problem here in Jordan, we can see that the water problem here in Jordan. We can see that I will stop share. I will stop share, so I can refer to the another time to the view. But if I can talk, yes. Here. So if we talk about water crisis in Middle East and mainly in Jordan, it's a big issue that I cannot cover within 15 minutes, but I'm ready to hear any questions from the participants. And thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Ghaida, for your presentation and sticking to the time. We'll definitely will maybe having more questions at the end. Yes. But we will now like to continue. So if you could also stop your presentation slides, maybe.
I want to stop my slides, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So now I would like to invite Dr. Ruchi Shree, Assistant Professor, the PG Department of Political Science, Tilka Majhi, Bhagalpur University, India, and her presentation will be on Dream of Piped Water amid ongoing COVID-19 crisis, plight of women in Sangam, Vihar, New Delhi. Dr. Ruchi Shree, the floor is yours now.
Good evening, everyone. And first of all, thank you so much to the Institute, NICE, to have invited me. And it was very good to have listened to the two former presentations. And since two of them were talking more about the macro dimension of water, so probably my paper is somewhere in between, and it talks about the macro and micro both. So to begin with, I would like to tell you that this paper is part of a larger research that we have undertaken, which is about the problems which the migrants face, especially about water, and they go to the cities. And for this, we had done the ethnographic research, and it was done in parts. So thrice we had visited the field, which was partly about two legislative elections and a municipality election in that area in the years 2015, 17, and 19. So whatever I'm going to speak, partly it will be ethnographic. So it is based on those field works conducted there. So since I should begin with the idea, like why Sangam Vihar is a special case, is because first of all, it is an unauthorized colony, and this term unauthorized is used by James Holston, and he says that now this is a new normal, how this urban periphery is emerging all over the world. In different parts of the countries, you get to see such kinds of, which are not exactly slums. They are relatively better than slums, but at the same time, there are numerous problems which the people who live there, they face. So these unauthorized colonies, especially the Sangam Vihar, is mostly people who live there. They are the migrant laborers who have migrated from UP and Bihar. Otherwise, the original residents of those areas were the Jats and Gujars living in Delhi. This Sangam Vihar colony is in the South Delhi. And I want to tell you, as I mentioned, that when we talk about water, then these days there are many new terms which have become popular. For instance, there is this whole dimension of, say, hydrosocial research, that nowadays there are so many things which are related to water, be it governance or say distribution, management. So a whole range of terms and concepts which have come up around water, and we have to grapple with numerous issues around water. So when we talk about water, it has become a major issue even when it comes to elections, especially when it comes to Delhi elections. So as I told you that it's based on the field work. So in most of the elections for Sangam Bihar, the title of my paper, The Dream of Piped Water, because this is a dream which is sold to the people who are residents of that area, that you vote for us and you will have the piped water. So it's like this piped water has become a dream for the people who are living in that area. And I'm using a term which is called hydraulic citizenship. So I came across this term which was used by Nikhil Desai in an article in Cultural Anthropology. He says that this term is about people who are living in a city and they are looking for an uninterrupted supply of water, and how they look at the state as the agency which should provide water to the people. So this is one dimension I wanted to talk about, and I'll come to it in the last of the paper as well. So to have told you about Sangam Vihar as an area and why it is necessary to talk about water, especially the plight of water, I want to emphasize that though the problem is faced by all the residents, but how women face this problem in a much more acute way. So I would call it the gender dimension of water. So there are numerous things which have been already which have come up in the research, and now many people are doing research on politics of water in Sangam Vihar and politics of bore wells, the role of tanker mafias. These are the new, you can say, things that we are trying to understand when it comes to the water supply in urban areas in India and other developing countries. So as I just mentioned, that women happen to face the problems in a different way. So there are 2 points that I would like to make. First is that water as part of nature. So I insist that there is a feminine connect. So water as the part of nature, and which we have now been talking about water as a natural resource. So water is something which is saleable. So this is something which doesn't go in sync for the women, because women think of water as something which is essentially part of
Dr. Ruchi,
their own being. So
Dr. Ruchi, is it possible for
yeah.
you to take your mic, the mic near the voice is not very clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah,
is it better now?
yeah,
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So the first point I made was that water as part of nature, and why women tend to have a feminine connect with. So this nature water interlinkages debate is quite popular. And second is the idea of everydayness of water, that their daily chores of the day activity is so much so involved around water, that for women it is something that they have to take care of, be it the household activity, or if the water is not there. For instance, when we say women, then women is not a homogeneous category as such. There are working women and non-working women. Then there are Hindu women and Muslim women. There are people who have gone there from Bihar and UP. So to have gone from the area which are water abundant areas, and then going to such an area where water is something for which you have to struggle so much, it's something they take a long time to, adjust with. So now we are in a world where we are talking about things like water rich and water poor, be it the areas or be it the people who have access to water. And even just now, Professor Ghaida's presentation about Jordan, it was such an eye-opener thing, that even like how this water poverty is the new issue she was also talking about. So the point I want to make is that water is creating a new way of inequality in the society. When I say so, I intend to argue that who have access to RO water and who don't have access to RO water, then who are having the bottled drinking water and who are not having. So this supply by tanker in that area in Sangam, Bihar, it's something that people have to, accept it as a new reality for them. And thus this dream for a 24/7 access to water is something that they dream for. So that's why I have named my paper, so that this dream for piped water is something that people are looking for in that area. Now coming towards the end of the paper, I would like to, as I said, that my paper is about the simultaneity of macro and micro. So let me talk about macro a bit, and then micro. So macro is about, say, what is the role of political parties, the role of the state, and the role of tanker mafia and Delhi Jal Board. So this whole dimension of institutional aspect around water is something, the administrative aspect of water, distribution, management, etc. And on the other hand, we have the micro dimension. So let me tell you about 2-3 things which are intriguing about Sangam Vihar, and which stayed with me after conducting the fieldworks in that area. I came across architectural innovations in that area. Now people have to construct a separate, they have underground tanks uh, beneath their houses to store more and more water. So that was something which I had never come across. So this architectural innovation was something very difficult for me to accept, that, oh, even this kind of thing happens. So this is one. Second is that the lifestyle changes which people have to make. So say the food pattern has to be changed. People do not take leafy vegetables because if you know sag, leafy vegetables, they need a lot of water to be cleaned. So that is something that their food pattern has to change. Then the women said that they do not allow the children to wash clothes or to wash utensils, because that will lead to wastage of water. So see how everything is in a way weaved around the uses of water, that how to have the most efficient use of water. Then third is the expenditure on water. So most of the people have to spend a lot of money on this tanker water supply by tanker. People just contribute then they call a tanker as a collective thing, and then that supplies water to people. Then another thing is that people do not prefer guests coming home. They don't want people to come and stay with them because there is water problem. Then another thing, for instance, some Muslim women told me that during the month of Ramadan, when we need water for wuzu, so we really we face difficulty and our expenditure for water goes up. So these were some of the findings that I saw, that how women have to really struggle a lot when it comes to dealing with the day-to-day activities around water. So I wanted to highlight the issue of acuteness of water problem in Sangam Vihar in general, and one can actually think of many such areas which are there, the unorganized colonies, and why we need to think of politics of water in such a way that women should actually be part of, if the decision making kind of thing involves women, probably it would lead to uh, maybe a better way of managing water. So I'm not sure how much time I'm left with. Do I have 2 minutes more, or
You have 5 minutes more, no problem.
I have another 5 minutes? Okay. So maybe I'll not take too long. I just wanted to talk about two more things, which I just mentioned. Yeah. So hydrosocial research, why this is a new area, and how scarcity has become a new means of governance. So when we do this kind of
We can't
research,
hear you. We can't
okay,
hear.
can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So scarcity of water is something which has become a new normal. And during this pandemic now, when washing hands is something which we are asked to do it frequently. So I was just wondering, for areas like Sangam Vihar, where there is such an acute scarcity of water, how the people living in that area must be dealing with this pandemic which is going on. So the point I want to make is that how scarcity is something, sometimes scarcity is not something which is given, but sometimes it is created. So election after elections, the political parties are selling the dream of piped water, and the people are also, say, waiting election after election that maybe something will change during this regime, that regime, but nothing much has changed. As I told you that thrice I went to the field, and people are divided about the works done by Kejriwal. There are some who feel that Kejriwal has done a good work, and there are some, so obviously this pro and anti kind of thing. But partly I could feel that not much has changed in these years, and probably the area has a long way to go when it comes to have a real, piped water connection for each household. So maybe I would talk about the things if the questions are there for me. So let me just conclude by saying one line, which is this everyday life of women revolving around water. Something we need to think that for areas like Sangam Bihar, uh, they must be dealing with very difficult time, and my all the sincere support, or whatever you say, with those people. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ruchi, for a very interesting presentation. We
Thank you.
definitely maybe will have some questions at the end of the all the round of presentations are done. Uh, so we will go now to the next speaker, who is Dr. Aparna, Assistant Professor, Department of Politics and International Relations, Central University of Jharkhand, India, who is going to speak on India-China border dispute. Is there any way forward? So Dr. Aparna, your 15 minutes start now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Very good evening to the present August gathering. Thank you, Dr. Pramod and Nice, for inviting me to this intellectual gathering. Thank you, Chair, sir. And during my presentation, if there will be any
Your
kind
voice is
of...
a bit low. If you can actually speak a bit louder, maybe, or the mic. Your voice is coming very low. Sorry.
Okay, now I'm a bit clear. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So what I was saying that during my presentation, if there will be any technical flaw or any technical problem, please bear with me, because I stay in a very remote area. Actually, it's a tribal belt. So maybe there will be some technical issue. So please bear with me for that. Without losing my time, I just want to start my presentation. The topic of my presentation is India-China border dispute. Is there any way forward? I want to start my presentation with the saying of veteran Professor Mir, that it is in the nature of powerful flank states to invariably attempt to pull buffer state into their orbit, or at times either fight over them or try to conquer them. As today's presentation starts with this Mir Samir's saying, and it is very much appropriate for this South Asian region. Especially if we see and if we study the behavior of China and China's government in this region. If we see the geographical boundary that India and China shares, it is almost 3488 kilometers. And Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, and Uttarakhand actually links their boundary with China. We have almost 24 disputed points with China, and China is having territory with almost 14 countries. This is just for the objective thing that I am putting right now, and it claims its land with 23 countries in this world. So, quote unquote, at the core of Sino-Indian border dispute is a tale of two lines, both disputed for over a century now. From the northern sector, it is called MacDonald Line, and from the southern sector, it is called McMahon Line. While India recognizes these lines as a successor state of the British Empire, Chinese government has always disowned it. They have never accepted these lines properly. And because of that, we are feeling that, and we are seeing that so many boundary disputes are occurring, and they have occurred in the past as well. On this history of these lines hangs on an interesting tale of statecraft, intrigue, and pure mischief. 1962 is not the only example or the only time. It was not the only time when India and China has fought a war and on the name of this border. But after that also, in 1967, in 2003, in 2013, in 2017, and today in present, in this tough time as well, we are fighting with China. We are having conflicts with China over the border issue. Historically, a land part China is trying to get a bigger role in post-COVID-19 era. And China's strategy is to lag behind India over border dispute. China is deemed to be an aggressor. It is not like India that they are having border dispute with, as I said earlier. They are having border dispute with so many other countries in this world. For an example, that they have illegally occupied Tibet, East Turkestan, Inner Mongolia, Paracel, and some of this partly Iceland. And you just say that if we see that in China has officially invaded Vietnam for 17 times according to their own recorded history. So these incidents are clear evidence that China is still living in past and has hegemonic intentions. So now the next question comes to our mind, that why China has taken this, has chosen this tensed and complicated time for getting into conflict with India. Again, when this whole world is facing a pandemic, a deadly pandemic is going on, and lakhs of people have lost their life, lakhs of jobs has been taken up, and the whole world economy is seeing a new slowdown. In such a wounded time, in such a tough time, why China has started such problems with India? That can be a $1 million question for us, but because Chinese government is not going to answer this question, so I'm trying to answer this question from based on the review of literature and my work. So firstly, maybe with the apprehension that it will take a lead over unprepared India, because the pandemic is going on, and we are facing economic slowdown, like rest of the world is also facing the same problem, but we are also facing. So maybe with this apprehension, that unprepared India will not sow their retaliation and swiftly, easily they will take over to the land, maybe. The second reason maybe that USA is also, which is now a having a friendly terms with India. Maybe USA is also having is also very much busy in carving out the scars of this pandemic. We know that lakhs and lakhs of people have lost, are losing. They have lost their life and they are losing continuously. They're losing their lives in USA. And their economy is also showing slowdown. So in such time, and the new thing is that USA is also preparing for the next presidential election. So maybe this apprehension as well that USA will not be able to help India, or she will not take it seriously. Because of that, China has chosen this time to go for a new conflict. Thirdly, third point maybe why China had started this conflict at this time, maybe that amendment in Article 370 may have paved the way for this new aggression. Because as we know that Indian government has amended Article 370, and we have separated Ladakh from Jammu and Kashmir. And this thing may have put China on toes, as Indian Home Minister Amit Shah has given this statement on the 5 August 2019, and he stated that Kashmir is an integral part of India. There is no doubt over it. When I talk about Jammu and Kashmir, Pakistan occupied Kashmir and Aksai Chin are included in it. Maybe China has taken this move. Chinese government has taken this move as a suspicion, and they have started new tension in the border areas in the Himalayan region. Because earlier also, if you see their behavior, if you read about their behavior, Chinese government behavior, that in 2011 also, at the time when Obama's Canberra speech happened, that has drew particular ire in Beijing, as it was seen as advocating regime change in China. I'm just reading the exact lines of what Obama had stated, that other models have been tried and they have failed: fascism and communism, rule by one man and rule by committee. And they have failed for the same simple reason: they ignore an ultimate source of power and legitimacy, the will of the people. And he has at that time, he has denied to this point as well the kind of specular economic growth that we see about China, that it has having such a rising economy. To that also Obama has targeted, and he said that prosperity without freedom is just another form of poverty. So after this thing, China has started taking Washington in a very crucial manner. So maybe because of the amendment in Article 370, and because of the separation of Jammu and Kashmir from Ladakh, and this change scenario, maybe this thing has created kind of suspicion in Chinese government mind. And maybe this has worked as a fertile ground for this new skirmishes. Fourthly, that China has always been assertive and aggressive in developing infrastructure in the border areas. And as we are seeing that when Doklam issue was happening, when Doklam and standoff was going on, at that time, also they have taken it in a very provocative manner. And right now, when we have inaugurated Kailash Mansarovar Road, at that time also it was taken in the same manner. So the development that is happening by the Indian government at the border area may have taken Chinese government into the understanding that we are trying to create problem for China, because they are very much sincere and very much sensitive about these border regions, and especially any development which is happening in this border region. The fifth and the last one is that why China? Because the question is why China has chosen this strategic timing. Because like rest of the world is facing problem because of this pandemic, China is also facing domestic problems at their land, at their home. 60 million data says that 60 to 100 million people have lost their jobs during the course of this pandemic in China. And Xi Jinping government is facing so much of allegations of corruption and malhandling of the situation. Right now, only just 2 days back, the senior CPC leader Kai Zia has given this statement that he has become a total mafia boss. Who the Xi Jinping he's talking about, and mafia boss who can punish his underlyings however he wants. That is why I say that this party is already a political zombie. And Beverly C was giving this statement, and she quoted that she is able to give this statement because she is in USA. If she could have been in China, she may could her life may have come in problem. So imagine because of this thing also, because they are trying to this Jinping government is trying to face paint their face and their failure at domestic labor. For that also, they are trying to erect a new problem at border area so that their people can deviate that can deviate from the actual point of the problem that is happening domestically, and they could not see the failure of the government. Because of this reason also, maybe China has started this problem. Now the answer to this question, as the subheading of my topic is that a way forward. What is the way forward? Kya karna chahiye? The first thing that could be done from the Indian side as the answer to this question, that we should flare Tibet issue in the world. As we know that in 1954 we have acknowledged China's sovereignty over Tibet, and this was the biggest foreign policy mistake that we have done in past, and we have paid it heavily in 1962 war. So now, because we know that for Chinese government, Tibet is a very sensitive part. It's a paining vein for them. So we have to punch on that. Uh, it has been so long that India has pursuing a defensive policy every time. Now it is time for India to pursue offensive policy. We have to protect our policies, and we will be protecting our policies, our foreign policy, our interest, our national security at this point. And by flooding Tibet issue can give us and rising and
you have
recognizing.
3 minutes left.
Okay, sir. I will try to conclude in that time. So, by rising and recognizing Tibet as a sovereign country shall help India in deterring Chinese movement in the region. Because every time China has tried to use this Himalayan region as a bargaining thing. They have already used it as a bargaining coin. That okay, if you will do something, we will start problem in this unclear border. So the second point can be that shift this conflict to South China Sea. The answer to the Himalayan region question is there in the ocean. It is in the South China Sea. Especially South China Sea countries are having, historically we are having such a nice relationship. Historically we haven't fought any war, and culturally we are having very much connected. So these countries are willing India to put her more aggressive as well as more prominent role she should play in this region. They are expecting India to counterbalance China, because China is singularly trying to control over South China Sea, and she claims over the 90% territory of South China Sea, as she says that civilization back centuries back in Song dynasty, they were having control over this region, so they should have in this time as well. So anyways, this can be the second choice of Indian foreign policy. The third, I'm just trying to become a bit faster. The third is Quad. Quad can be the answer of this question, because as the very first presentation was talking about, that Quad may not be able to fulfill our desires, what we are expecting from Quad. But for sure, it can work as a deterrent force for Chinese government. It can work like that. Because these like-minded country, India, Australia, USA, and Japan, equally they are in problem because of the irritating irritating problems that are being created time to time by the Chinese government, all of them are equally in problem. So and singularly they are not in condition of carving out China. So collectively and bilaterally as well, they can work together to carve China. Now the next is limiting export and import. I will not go into the detail as but for sure I will take 2 minutes to conclude my topic. The next answer to this question may be that we can the kind of dependency that Indian economy is having to China, we have to carve out that as well. But it will take time, because as we know that over the night we cannot erode the Chinese influence over the domestic industries, as the profit of trade and investment with China are colossal and lucrative. But as the veteran diplomat G. Parthasarathi says that time has come when India should review and reduce its economic dependence on China. So this time we can answer back to China by our economic in the economic way. This can also be another way by which we can answer China. Last but not the least is the war. As we know that right now the Chief of Defense Staff, General Bipin Rawat, has stated that our military options are open. And equally, the Chinese state media has also reported the PLA in conducting joint military exercise aimed at the destruction of key hostile hubs in the high elevation mountain region. So last option is of course war. War can be the option of the kind of skirmishes, the kind of conflict that is going on between India and China in the border area. But as we see the practical reality, both the countries are nuclear weapon. They are holding nuclear weapon, and they are having capacity to destroy each other. Again, the concept of mutual assured destruction will work. So nobody, I think, neither India nor China will think of going for nuclear war. So that is the conclusion point of my presentation, that it would be interesting to see that how India's strategic vision and planning is going to carve out this problem, and how this duo's bilateral relationship is going to set the future of this region. So thank you so much, Chair Sir, for giving me this time, and hope to see you all in the question answer session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Aparna. Without much ado, I would like to go on to the next speaker, who is Ambassador Mohan Krishnashrista, former ambassador of Nepal to France and founder president of CDD. He is going to speak about Nepal's foreign policy, challenges and opportunities. Sir, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much. Good evening to and namaste to the chair, panelists and audience at home and abroad. I thank NICE and WPC for giving me this opportunity. I come from diplomatic service of Nepal and worked for 31 years. I visited 75 countries, and I have also wrote a book titled 3 Decades in Diplomacy. Now let me begin my presentation. Before dealing with the main topic, I wish to highlight some aspects of my country for the benefit of foreign audience unfamiliar to our country. You have listened wonderful ideas about water resources. We have also plenty of water resources in our country, kindly note. But today's my topic is Nepal's foreign policy issues. It has been 251 years since Nepal was unified as a single nation. We have long history. It is therefore a little difficult to make a good presentation in just 10-15 minutes. However, I'll try my best. Nepal is an ancient Himalayan mountainous country with a population of 30 million. In the northern side, there are high Himalayas, including Mount Everest, the highest peak in the world, at 8,814 meters. There are also 7 more Himalayas above 8,000 meters and hundreds of other Himalayas above 6,000 meters. Northern side is also called water tower because of abundant water resources. Middle part is a mountainous and lower southern part is all Tarai plains. Lowest point above sea level is merely 50 meters and highest point is 8,840 meters. This wonderful geographical variation lies just within 150 kilometers south to north. Nepal is a naturally beautiful country with rich flora and fauna, huge biodiversity, abundant water resources, cultural arts and artifacts, thousands of tangible and intangible heritages. We have 125 ethnic groups and 123 dialects. People's way of life based on multi-ethnic, multi-languages, and multi-religious itself is very interesting. We found varied cultural heritages, including varied food, dresses, music, and festivals. Peaceful coexistence is the hallmark of our people. We have 6 seasons to be precise, known as Basanta Ritu spring, Grishma Ritu summer, Varsha Ritu rainy, Sharad Ritu autumn, Hemanta Ritu pre-winter, and Shishir Ritu winter. Nepal was unified in 1769 AD by late King Prithviraj Shah. Until then, the country was divided into many petty kingdoms and principalities. We must therefore say that from 1769, real foreign policy was started. Late King was a visionary. He depicted Nepal as a yam between two boulders, showing the vulnerability of a small country sandwiched between two giants. For better understanding of the foreign policy of Nepal, I have divided into 7 evolutionary periods and their key features. In fact, geography and history also dictates foreign policy of a country. Now, let me explain the evolutionary projects of the foreign policy of Nepal. Number 1, Great King Prithviraj Shah, who ruled from 1769 to 1775 AD. After the unification of the country, King Prithvi enunciated foreign policy like this. He said, Nepal is a yam between two boulders. So we must be very careful from the British rulers. He favored French military. He got help to make small muskets. He didn't allow Christian missionaries to be active. After that, in number 2, I have divided the period of Prime Minister Vincent Thapa from 1806 to 1837. He was a strong man. He was a staunch anti-British, and Anglo-Nepal War was fought during his time. He favored also French military and invited French army engineers and trainers. He effected many social reforms also. However, due to palace machinations, he faced downfall and committed suicide. Sugauli Treaty, which is known to everybody, between Nepal and Britain was signed in 1814 to 16, which shrunk our territories by 2/3. Now, the third period is of Prime Minister Chandrabal Rana, who was also a very strong man. He had his family rule from 1846 to 1950. Janga rose to power following the massacre of palace courtiers in 1846 AD. He pursued pro-British policies. He rose from a very humble spot. He sought power and served as PM. He visited UK and France. He also made many social reforms, introduced civil code influenced by the French civil code. In 1857, Rana rulers assisted East India Company to quell the Sepoy mutiny in India, and Jung was successful to get back 4 districts from Britishers, which Nepal lost before. After his death, his family dynasty ruled for 104 years in Nepal. Now the fourth period is King Mahendra and Prime Minister B.P. Koirala from 1951 to 1959. Democracy was established in 1951 with the joint efforts of the king and people. Nepal was admitted to the United Nations on 14 December 1955 and joined main specialized agency of UN. Ever since, Nepal has been voicing its policies vis-a-vis recurring issues and working with these institutions for the benefit of Nepal. These are reforms and restructuring of the UN system, new members, active part in the works of specialized agencies, environmental issues, International Criminal Court, human rights, disarmament, terrorism, peacekeeping operations, least developed countries, Israel and Palestine problem, Korean Peninsula problem, South-South cooperation, financing for development, humanitarian assistance and disaster management, and by now, Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals. Nepal attended the seminal Bandung Conference in Indonesia in 1955. It was a conference of states who favored neither NATO nor Warsaw Pact countries during the Cold War. Nepal was a founding member of the Non-Aligned Movement. Since Nepal joined NAM, a definite foreign policy was enunciated on the basis of NAM principles, Charter of the United Nations, and international law. Ever since, Nepal has been pursuing the principles of NAM, which are mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty, mutual non-aggression, mutual non-interference in the domestic affairs, equality and mutual benefit, peaceful coexistence. Nepal has been participating in all the summits at the heads of the state or government level ever since first summit was held in Algiers in 1961. At the same time, Nepal expanded relations with many countries, in particular with Israel. The fifth period is King Mahendra and his son King Virendra from 1960 to 1989. King introduced one-party panchayat system in 1960, which ended in 1989. During this time also, there was expansion of diplomatic relations with friendly countries, pursued non-aligned foreign policy, played active roles in the United Nations. Nepal was also founding member of the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, SHAR. It was established in Kathmandu in 1985. The sixth period is multi-party system of government from 1990 to 2007. During this period, many prime ministers from different parties served the country. And continuation of NAM foreign policy, new constitution promulgated in 1990, Nepal was admitted to World Trade Organization in April 2004. During this period, economic diplomacy was implemented in 1996 with 6 main objectives. Those are tourism promotion, export promotion, foreign direct investment promotion, water resources development, foreign employment promotion, and foreign net increment. The seventh period is Federal Republican system from 2008 to present. A new constitution was promulgated on 20 September 2015 with bicameral parliament. Pursuance of non-aligned foreign policy continues. Monarchy was abolished on 29 May 2008. Nepal was declared a federal republic. President served as the titular head of the state. Prime Minister as the head of the government. Countries of their size, location, and political economic systems. Foreign policy of Nepal has been declared as follows. The fundamental objective of Nepal's foreign policy is to enhance the dignity of the nation by safeguarding sovereignty, territorial integrity, independence, and promote the economic well-being and prosperity of Nepal. It is also aimed at contributing to global peace, harmony, and security. Nepal's foreign policy is guided by the following basic principles. 1. Mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. 2. Non-interference in each other's internal affairs. 3. Respect for mutual equality. 4. Non-aggression and the peaceful settlement of disputes. 5. Cooperation for mutual benefit. 6. Avoiding faith in the Charter of the United Nations. 7. Value of world peace. Now, let me explain some of the challenges of the foreign policy. To protect sovereignty and territorial integrity of the nation, to maintain non-aligned character of the foreign policy, Nepal's important geographical location, landlocked country without sea, to maintain balance between India and China, as the country is bordered by 3 sides by Indian territory and in the north by Tibet Autonomous Region of China. Both nuclear-powered nations, another nuclear-powered country, Pakistan, is also nearby. Friendship with all and enmity with none policy to achieve fast economic development, growing acts of terrorism, cyber crimes, and environmental degradation and global warming. Now, the recent issues are Millennium Challenge Concept Compact of USA. Nepal has signed with the USA with regard to UNCCA, supposed to get US $500 million as assistance, but ratification by our parliament is pending. Similarly, Nepal has signed agreement with Build Road Initiative of China, but no project has been begun so far. Now let me explain what are the opportunities for foreign policy of Nepal. Nepal is situated between 2 giants with almost 2.6 billion population. Both countries are achieving fast economic growth, save corona devastation. Huge markets in both countries. These are good sources of FDI for our country. We have a lot of market resources for promotion of economic diplomacy around the world, trade prospects with many countries, promotion of cultural aspects. We are also part of the expanding globalization, multilateralism, and mutual cooperation. Now, let me explain some of the key soft powers of Nepal, which can be utilized for progressive Nepal to a vibrant country. High Himalayas, which are always snow-capped, wholly known for mountaineering activities.
You have 3 minutes left.
Lumbini, the sacred birthplace of Lord Buddha, Apostle of Peace, International Center for Peace. Kumari, the living goddess, a distinct figure blessing Nepalese. 11 UNESCO heritage sites, huge religious and cultural heritages, vast water resources. Northern side is called Water Tower, rich biodiversity, skill IT, varied tourism products, different categories of migrant workers, natural beauties with pristine forests, gurgling rivers and serene valleys, friendly and warm nature of people, multi-ethnic, multicultural, and multi-language social fabric. Now, at the last of my presentation, what we need to do, in my opinion, after decades of political instability, we have now ended the causes of such instabilities. These are peaceful days in the country after a long time. In my opinion, everyone has a role to play in the development of the country. Peace and development are always go together. These are complementary to each other. I therefore consider that these steps are necessary as of today. Government to make sound and effective policies vis-a-vis hydropower, tourism, trade and commerce, industry, IT sectors and other viable sectors for speedy development, bureaucracy to implement government's policies effectively without hassles and help the general public, private sector to work as an engine of growth, diplomatic sector to work effectively in foreign countries to promote our national interests, general public to be time honoring, hardworking, hold decency, espousing the motto, live and let live. Despite abundant natural resources, we have lagged far behind in the development of our country. Time has indeed come now. This ends my presentation. I think I have saved time also. I thank you for all your attention. And if there are questions from the audience, those will be answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Shrestha, for saving time and finishing within the given time. And thank you so much for your interesting presentation. I would now go to the last speaker of this session, is Dr. Joyita Bhattacharjee, a Senior Fellow, Observer Research Foundation, India, who is going to speak on SAARC and BIMSTEC. Are these organizations competing or complementing each other? So Joyita, nice to see you and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mirza. At the very onset, I would like to congratulate Liz for organizing this wonderful conference, because it's really a very new format where I think more than the participants from 30 countries are presenting, and we from different parts of the region and from the country, from South Asia and also the world, we are talking together. It's a great opportunity, and I am my presentation is talking about regional cooperation, and I see a wonderful cooperation emerging and a sense of unity emerging in diversity, because this panel is also very different. It starts with very positive water, which is life, which talks about life. Then we come to other issues of geostrategy, border, and I come up to talk about regional cooperation. Why I choose this particular regional cooperation, especially at a time when we are facing pandemic, which is, I think, one of the biggest disaster that the world is facing today, and important and a lot of assumptions are made, and one of the reason has been that it is going to impact the global geopolitics, and it is already we have seen some severe changes emerging in the global geopolitics. looking at that, because of the rise of China and United States, the rivalries are emerging, and definitely the standard world order that we have seen, it's shifting, and and I think the COVID, the projection says that it is going to further accelerate this. So how we, the South Asian nation, can really handle this situation? One standard alternative, that prescription that is emerging, is that we really have to think about regional cooperation, because we have to understand South Asia is a country, is a region which is home of one of the poorest people in the world, but it is also a place of emerging economies. So South Asia has many challenges. We have our own challenges. We have our challenge of poverty, our climate. So we have to work together to take this regionalism, work together to face this situation. So how we can really work together? Whenever we talk about South Asia, and especially regionalism in South Asia, normally two organizations are always highlighted. One is SAARC, that is South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation, and BIMSTEC, that is Bay of Bengal. The moment these two organizations come in, the normal has been that the normal understanding has been that the region SAARC, the promotion of BIMSTEC or the SAARC, they are competing each other. But I have a very different take on this subject. I think it is important that we really are but in my paper, I have tried to test whether the SAARC or BIMSTEC are mutually are really competing, or they are cooperating or complementing each other. If we see the SAARC, the way it has been constructed, SAARC, as we all know, it is a South Asian organization. So it has all the 8 countries of SAARC, of South Asia. Similarly, BIMSTEC, it has 5 of the countries, and BIMSTEC is very unique organization because it covers the ecology, the Himalayan ecology, and also the Bay of Bengal region. So it is, but BIMSTEC has 7 members. It also has 2 members from the ASEAN, that is East Asia, that is Myanmar and Thailand. But since there is dominance of South Asian countries, I think this is one of the reasons why BIMSTEC has been perceived to be mutually competing organization. Another reason has been of such perception has been that in 2016, when India hosted the BRICS summit, India invited the BIMSTEC countries. So normally, so probably this is also one of the reasons why this perception has emerged. If you see the history of SAARC, we all know it started in 1985. The motto of SAARC was to create a regional organization that will look for the development of the South Asian people, and through development of people and cooperate each other, that will bring the country's self-reliance. So overall, it was the welfare of the South Asian countries. Interestingly, when it comes to BIMSTEC, actually, initially it was known as BISTEC, Bay of Bengal organization. uh, Bay of Bengal. It was BISTEC, so it was Bay of Bengal in the Bay of Bengal or association. It was basically named as Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka and Thailand Economic Cooperation. So the Bay of, while SAARC was talking about regional cooperation for the people, but Bay of Bengal started with a very, the BIMSTEC, which BISTEC, from the very name, it talked about economic cooperation. So there was basically a subtle divide when it comes to SAARC and BIMSTEC. But, and even the change of the name from BISTEC, it became BIMSTEC when Myanmar joined that economic cooperation, and later Nepal and Bhutan was included, and BIMSTEC. So we got the name BIMSTEC, and also there was a change in the name of BIMSTEC. It became Bay of Bengal Institution for Region from Economic, Multilateral, Scientific and Economic Cooperation. So it is from the very name of BIMSTEC, it is actually, it suggests that there is, so the focus of the BIMSTEC, it's very, very clear. It's economic and scientific cooperation. Definitely why there has been comparison, why people are comparing SAARC with BIMSTEC, or why when already we had an organization called SAARC, which clearly talks about South Asia, why people were tilting region cooperation. And it also has a region, it has its headquarters in Kathmandu, but it's somewhere, it has failed in its attempt for creating regional cooperation. One of the major reason has been the geopolitics or the politics between two major countries, India and Pakistan, and the rivalries or the reason. So it has failed to well. I think this is little far, and also there has been the summit, especially because for any regional cooperation, there is a lot of importance to the summit level meetings, and the summit level meeting is not happening for quite some time now. So there has been a notion that the SAARC is not working. So if we really think that we really have to go forward and we have to have a new thing, so for regional cooperation, understanding the realities, we should move towards BIMSTEC. And BIMSTEC, a lot of the major qualities, lot of has been that has been put forward. The reason has been the choice for BIMSTEC that has been put forward has been that BIMSTEC has these 5 countries. Of course, it is not covering the whole of South Asia, but at least it is covering the 5 countries. And it has, and all of them share more or less friendly, reasonably friendly relationship among each other. So it can move what are the problems that we have faced in SAARC, we might not face in BIMSTEC. So it has a better potential to move forward as a regional cooperation. But also there is a need to understand that to have a regional cooperation, especially in South Asia, is that the economics of it, because there has been a severe, the regional integration in South Asia is not, it's still ongoing. Our trade is not that great. So if we really want to work together, we really have to have an organization that can move together. But but I have doubt whether BIMSTEC is really problem free. We have seen BIMSTEC was established in 1997, and after that, but BIMSTEC also has its challenges. It took almost many years to have a permanent secretariat. It also faces it also faces the irregularity in the summit level meetings that is there. Also, many of the big ticket trade agreement, which is seen to be a major pillar of BIMSTEC, it is been many years and we really don't see much movement taking place in the BIMSTEC. So there are challenges. Also, when we are thinking of a regional cooperation, it's important to bind together. So when people are talking about BIMSTEC as a SAARC versus BIMSTEC and choices between which is better, I think both have their challenges together, have their own challenges, but South Asia need to navigate out of this whole problem. The basic difference, I think, that SAARC is a regional regional organization and BIMSTEC is a intra-regional organization. So the people who talk about they are mutually competing, I think the whole premise is wrong, because the very fundamental of these two organizations.
Rita, you have 3 minutes left.
Yeah, I will. I'm almost coming to close of my presentation. So they are basically, as I said, they are no way competing, but I think the two organizations has a lot to offer to South Asia. In fact, they could be mutually complementary to each other. They can complement each other, and rather BIMSTEC should be seen as an organization that connects South Asia with Southeast Asia, and especially at this time, we should talk to each other how these two organizations can come together and work together for a better cooperation in South Asia. I think already we have seen the difference, because the SAARC and BIMSTEC is different, but they can complement, because when the COVID pandemic hit and we are struggling, South Asia, I think the India itself took the effort to bring all the organized countries together under the South Asian umbrella to talk about and to think about a regional response to the COVID-19 pandemic. But BIMSTEC has remained silent on this issue. So it is time, I think, instead of thinking about competing each other, we should look into the better perspectives and take help of all the organizations that is available and come together and look into moving forward for the betterment of the people of the region, which is South Asia and Southeast Asia together. So, and here BIMSTEC and SAARC together can work hand in hand in developing a better format for the upliftment of the people of the whole region. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Zoita, and also to everyone for their presentations and sticking within the time. I would now like to initiate the question and answer session. So in that sense, I think now I will begin with Zoita first and then go backwards. We have been streaming this on YouTube as well as on Facebook, and there have been some questions also which are coming in from listeners on the platforms of YouTube and Facebook as well. So I think it will be prudent to actually start from Zoita onwards and then go start our way backwards, right? So, Joita, the questions that are coming for you are in the context of how India's role in BIMSTEC and SAARC is seen. And it is often mentioned that, BIMSTEC is India's Belt and Road Initiative and connectivity projects for India's neighbors. What is your comment on that? And if BIMSTEC also fails to take off just like SAARC, do you think that it will be India's failure in a sense?
I think for any regional cooperation to work, it requires participation and cooperation of all the countries, all the member countries, whether it is SAARC or whether it is BIMSTEC. So it is important that because we have seen when it comes to SAARC also, India actually took some effort, and if you see the duty-free access was given under SAFTA. So it's not that India was never reluctant. So of course, India being a larger neighbor or being the center of the South Asia, it has a role to play. But I think cooperation of all the countries is very important, and in a region, and it should be on the basis of mutual trust, and it's very necessary, and all should work together, because it's not about we have to understand that this is a region. It's the region where we all have to work hand in hand, and we should think about a unity of the people of South Asia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joita. The question for Ambassador Shrestha. So actually, the questions that are coming for you is that in the nature of like how we often hear that Nepal, is, as you also mentioned, as a geographical, location of Nepal is as a buffer state between India and China, and it has its own set of opportunities and challenges. So in that sense, we often get to hear that Nepal is leaning toward China. So what is your comment on this? Do you think that Nepal is leaning toward China? And also, as a other follow-up question, is that how do you look at Nepal's foreign policy under the current Prime Minister of Nepal? Do you think that he has been able to manage this balance between India and China delicately? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mirza, and thank you for the questions. What I think that, as I have enumerated, Nepal's basic foreign policy is non-aligned, not to be aligned with any country. And, for the development of any country, similarly for Nepal also, we need assistance from our friendly countries. Of course, our biggest neighbors are India in the south, which borders three parts of the country. And with China also, we have relations since long time. So we are actually pursuing a balanced policy. But recently, because of some activities or project-wise investments, some people have thinking that Nepal has tilted towards China. But I don't think so, because to my mind, we as a nation, Nepal as a small country sandwiched between such giant countries, we cannot brook any enmity, any unfriendly relation with neither China nor India. Both countries are equally important for us. Of course, we people used to say by culture, by religions, and because of open border, we have much commonality between Nepal and India. But with China also, we have been maintaining a lot of relations for a long years, as far as 800 years ago, the son of Nepal, Arnika, went to China to make pagodas there. And also there were interactions between both China in the past days. And of course with India, there are relations when King Nepal was divided into many small principalities. There, even in Kathmandu, there were 3 kingdoms ruled by 3 kings. At that time also there were interactions. So I personally don't think like that, but people are free to think whatever they like. But what I think as a diplomat, that we cannot have the enmity of any country. But now you see there is some simmering problems between Nepal and India. Naturally, people tend to think that Nepal, even here, when I went to Monaco last year, one big Indian businessman, just when I met him, he told me, now Nepal is finished, you have gone to China. Then I had a big talk with him, how you can say like that? We are an independent country, sovereign country. Just because of some actions, you cannot say Nepal has gone to China. You cannot say like that. We actually, the government policy must be like this. We need cooperation from both countries, not only India and China, from all the, we have a lot of donor countries also, So I don't think like some people alleged, because I have also worked for long years in diplomacy. But I firmly believe that we must maintain the balance between both countries. We cannot have any enmity with any country. When there are problems between countries, we have to talk, we have to negotiate, we have to keep all the facts and figures before the talks. And talks, negotiation can solve any disputes, any differences, that I think. Thank you.
Do you have any comment on the KP Oli's current foreign policy?
Well, you see, people used to think like that because President of China, Xi Jinping, visited Nepal in 23 years. There have been regular interactions between Nepalese and Chinese officials. So these are things, these are normal courses, but I don't think because of some actions, a country like Nepal, a mature country like Nepal, go to some country's lap like so easily. Because there are always the big people, they are watching. A leader cannot put the stake of Nepal in one country. I firmly believe, this is, we have a mature policy, mature politicians. Just because of some actions, we cannot say Nepal has gone to India's lap or China's lap. I believe that sanity will prevail, and we always pursue non and foreign policy. This is the only way we know how to do. Thank you.
Dr. Aparna, so the question for you is that in the context of the infrastructure development that is happening both on the Indian side as well as the Chinese side, what is, in your opinion, how do you think that these two countries are matching the border infrastructure with each other? Because we always hear that the Chinese side, the infrastructure is also very, of a higher level, as well as the geography is also much more hospitable towards the Tibetan side than on the Indian side. So in that context, what do you think border infrastructure has been able to keep up on the Indian side, and how will that factor span out in the future? Because we have also seen that most of the recent skirmishes between India and China, including from Doklam onwards, have been happening because of road building and border infrastructure issues, as well as, the recent incident in Galwan. So it will be interesting to know from you from a perspective of, as well as in Bhutan, because Bhutan also has an unresolved boundary dispute with China. So how do you see the larger picture in that context? And also as a follow-up question, do you see any difference between the India's policy toward China under the UPA government as well as the NDA government at present? So if you see any transitions or any similarities or something like that. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chair, sir. I would like to mix both the questions together, and then I would be answering. Yes, there is, for sure, there is some kind of policy differences with UPA and the present government. The reason is that in the kind of infrastructure development, you have asked that whether it is a kind of, any kind of match is there. Of course, since last 60 years, what kind of foreign policy we have persuaded, especially with China, we have never tried to meet them anger. And every time our foreign policy was like a kind of reaction to Chinese action, Chinese foreign policies action. When they were taking some action, we were taking reaction to them. And it was like some kind of following up. We were just following their footsteps, right? And we tried to appease a Chinese government in some way, in the way of A or in the way of B. We tried to appease them. And the foremost important thing is, till this time, our foreign policy was more defensive rather than offensive. Now you can think, or you can take it as a foreign policy shift or a kind of change. You can perceive what we are seeing in the Modi government, that we have become much clear as well as much nationalistic in our approach. For an example, whatever is ours is ours. The kind of development that is happening in the border areas, that were earlier also it was happening, but earlier it was not earing Chinese government. But why it is eating now? Because as I have mentioned in my presentation, that we have amended Article 370, right? To as a professor of international relations, since so long I have taught this paper and Indian foreign policy, and never I have taught, although I have asked this question, and I was asked this question every time by my student, that whether there is a kind of solution of Kashmir issue, because that is such a lingering issue since last 70 years this thing was going on. And every time I have answered no, or there is no kind of solution. In fact, I haven't read any article related to that, that there will be a change. There can be a kind of status change in the status quo that is in Jammu and Kashmir. But that was a drastic change in this government's foreign policy as well as domestic policy, that we have resolved this issue, this eating issue of India, and between India, Pakistan, and also China is a party because Aksai Chin is in the control of China. So we have changed this status quo, and we have amended Article 370. So this was a kind of irritating fact for Chinese government. They have taken it very seriously. That not only this construction, this infrastructure development is important. They are taking it. They are relating it with the things that are happening domestically in India as the government, because in global times also, in wherever in Chinese government's newspaper, print or electronic media debate, you will see they are asking about, they are accusing Indian government as the Hindu nationalistic government, right? Seems like being Hindu a kind of is a kind of accusation to us, right? And I don't know what kind, why they have put this accusation on us, but they have related both these things, abolition of or amendment in Article 370, as well as the construction that is happening in that border area. Although it is not matching with the quality and the kind of amount that is happening from Chinese side, for sure it is not having the match, because technically they are far better than us. But now we are also not going to leave them as a granted one. They should not take it as a granted, that okay, if you are doing some construction in the Pangong Lake area, or if you are doing something in Doklam, we are going to leave you as it is. No, we are now going to, as Ambassador Sir was saying, that we are a sovereign country and we need to raise our voice, whether you are a superpower, whether you are a regional power, or whatever. Right. As Professor Mirza, I have quoted, I have started my presentation with the sayings of Professor Mirza, who said that these superpower countries, means powerful countries in international relations, they behave in this manner, that every time they have tried to pull up the humble countries into their orbit. Right. So we are not going to trying to give such a kind of message to the Chinese government. I think I have tried to answer my question. If anything else is left, please let me know, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. As the saying goes, there's an old Chinese saying that whatever is ours.
Yes,
Everything
yes.
else we can negotiate.
Yes, yes, yes. We are trying to answer them in the same way, sir.
Yeah.
That is
So,
the actually change, sir, that this government has met from the former government. Thank you.
Thanks. Dr. Ruchi, Shree, your presentation was very interesting, and the questions that actually has come for you is in the context of how does mega cities like Delhi, because Delhi at the end of the day is a mega city, and when you're working in such an urban mega city context, how do you see the peculiar challenges to that kind of a environment? Because you also invoked Nikhil Anand's hydraulic cities and aspects of infrastructuring such cities through water. Do you think that in the larger context of, and are there any examples from the surrounding neighborhood as well, not only from the Indian context but from the international neighborhood, that you can actually draw upon to actually understand these kind of aspects as to how water security in the mega cities is going to span out in the future?
First of all, thank you for the question. And as far as you have asked about any other example, that doesn't strike to me at the moment. But what I can say is that for a city like Delhi, we will have to plan the water distribution thing in a different way, because given the fact that there are
Can you hold the
inequalities
mic
in
a
the
bit
society.
closer to, yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, I forgot again. So we will have to plan the water distribution thing in a different way, because in a mega city, since there are different classes, you can say, and as I already said, that Sangam Vihar belongs to South Delhi. So it happens to be a posh area itself. So that way it is adjacent to a very hi-fi areas, you can say, and it's hardly say 5-7 kilometers from the posh area like South Delhi. So I think, as I already said, the dreamed pipe water is something which people are looking for. I think still it will have a long way to go when it comes to the realization of dreamed pipe water. Probably community participation could be a way, because in true sense, if we go for decentralization, then to ensure that people participate in this process rather than having an up-down approach, that a centralized thing, that administrative structure, I think we will have to think of the ways to empower the people in its true sense, so that they be the custodians of their own water. And as I already told in my presentation, that there are architectural innovations and things like that. And also the high density of population is something which is, if some of you, if you know about that area, the density of population is very high. So the waterborne diseases and the kind of sewage system which is there, so in a way it becomes a hub for the diseases because of water and the lack of sanitation. So probably for a city like Delhi, because it's the capital of India, it will have to plan the things in much more efficient way. That is what I can say. I cannot give you any other example of any, it's not striking to me. So just that. Thank you.
When in the COVID situation, when now hand washing is being, emphasized by the government as a measure to actually,
True.
prevent from COVID, how much of that kind of a pressure is happening within Sangam Vihar, for example? Have you talked to people there during this pandemic? Are they,
I
issues related to this?
I haven't talked to them, reason being that now I am out of Delhi, so I am not able to, so maybe on phone I can ask, but then I can just imagine, because even in the non-pandemic days, the situation was so, I mean, worse. So now it must have worsened even much more. That's all I can just imagine from here. And as my paper talked about the gendered dimension of water, so that way the women really have to face the plight much more, because they have to prioritize that the other members of the families get water first, and so they cut on their water consumption. Then even going to loo, they have to, like, the frequency should be low, because again you have to use water. So these water constraints have now posed a new kind of challenges for people. As I already talked about, the lifestyle changes, the food pattern had changed, and even things like that. So women really have to face the burnt of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So this, Professor Ghaida, if you're there, the question for you is again lined in a similar context of how the water issues in Jordan, your country, how much of that is a urban rural context distribution? Because when you showed the map of, there were certain projects in the Red Sea region, and there were desalination plants and, a network of connectivity of water infrastructure being built in that area, and most of it actually serving Amman, the capital. So in that sense, how much do you see the water security problem being framed in context of mega cities in Jordan, as well as, in terms of how you see that in rural areas of Jordan?
There is actually two important projects in Jordan that can distribute the water. I can't say that's a similarity, but we try to distribute water similarity in different cities in Jordan. You see that we are a dry country and a small country with an area of 89,000 square kilometers. And this, we don't have a mega cities like India. Of course, it's like a small city in India, this is all of the area of Jordan. But we have DC Ammani project that's all from the middle of Jordan to all the south, have a full distribution of use for industrial, for agriculture sectors in such a manner that can now be in a way we get used to this, but we have to bit characterization of our water resources using the new tools and the new technologies. We have a new project that's this project Dead Red Sea that's not until now take the light, because it's between the three countries that can have a good water for the three countries that faces shortage of water: Jordan, Israel, and Palestine. But until now, unfortunately, the project is not going on. So we fixed the other project, that's desalination. We have desalination units distributed, but also desalination of the sea needs a lot of costly, and if we can calculate this economically use from this point of view. But the problem, as I told you, not in the distribution of the water, it's the amount of the water that every person in Jordan, either he is in Amman or in south or the capital Amman, or the south of Jordan or north of Jordan.
Thank you. Dr. Faisal, your presentation from a very, very climate change perspective, if you look at the small island nation states that are in the Pacific, how do you see the diplomatic tools that are there in their hands? Because climate change vulnerabilities are only going to increase in the coming times. And also the geostrategic, as you mentioned, the geostrategic interventions in the Pacific, is also the Indo-Pacific region, is also going to increase in a sense. So in that sense, how do you see the strategy of bandwagoning coming forward in the context of the small island nation states in actually achieving strategic goals as well as environmental goals in terms of climate change adaptation?
See, the biggest challenge that we all know and we can see is the climate change related vulnerabilities, and for that specifically they would be dependent on aid. Now we have seen a lot of issues, because earlier the traditional donors have been, United States, Australia have been there. Now China is going to replace Australia, as I told, maybe this year or next year, as the largest donor there. Strategically also there is a difference among the islands on how do they perceive China. So at least 5-6 islands of those islands, they have some sort of, strategic differences when it comes to China and Taiwan and all. But what is required is aid. Now, aid proliferation, if you have seen in the recent times, have been very high. Continuous, getting continuously ODA assistance, getting, through the DAC donors or even through the non-DAC donors, it has been a great challenge for these countries. Whether you give them aid or, you give them some sort of other things in terms of, they have a lot of issues like the early climate warning systems and all those things are there. Some countries have been giving them aid. Now that is what the discussion that I have talked about is, there are 12, 15, some are, climate change issues, some are the strategic issues, some are the other types of issues. So there are 10, 15 challenges that they are facing. Now, if you want to give aid to all those challenges, a pie of that aid is spread across 10 challenges or spread across 8 challenges, that is where the problem is, which countries have been doing. Most countries, if you look at, if suppose they have 10 challenges, so most countries would be giving aid to all those 10 challenges, and the pie of the aid would be so small that actually those countries would not gain anything from that aid which is coming, right? So that's a challenge. So therefore, it is very, very critical that the countries must match their own, ability and in which sector they can give aid, and also the requirements of the small island countries, that in which sectors do they require aid. So you have to prepare a matrix which can match your competence of giving aid in certain sectors and their ability to take aid in certain sectors. And if you are able to match that, so perhaps you will find that you don't need to give them aid in all 10 sectors. You need to give aid to them in only 3 sectors, for example. And therefore, if you are giving $1 million of aid or 50,000 dollars, whatever you are giving in terms of aid, you can give that particular aid in only 2 or 3 specific sectors by which they can actually benefit. Now, take for example things like seawall. These countries are heavily, getting aid in different sectors from different countries, but they don't have resources to build seawalls. Papua New Guinea talked about building seawalls. They don't have resources. Talk about Kiribati, Tuvalu, Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands. They cannot build it. Then come to, fish zoning, for example. Fish zoning is again a challenge, but they can't do it. Lot of, climate warning systems, use of technology, use of ICT, they need aid for that. But the aid is so much scattered that actually it does more harm to them because they have to, in terms of proliferation, it does more harm to them than gain. So I think countries have to revisit their aid policy. That is number one. And second, the proliferation should be checked so that at least there is a continuous flow of aid to those countries. And third, countries must also inbuild this thing as part of the policy, that they have to devise what exactly they are going, for what purpose they are going to give aid. Otherwise, aid flow is coming and they don't get benefit. Like, look at Kiribati. I gave the example of Kiribati. The whole population, if at all it is submerged in water in times to come, the whole population has to be shifted from Kiribati to Fiji, from where Kiribati president has purchased a piece of land. So how does it help that country? And this, if this happens, this could be the largest climate refugee crisis ever the world has seen. So to handle all these challenges, I think prioritization is very, very important as a matter of policy, which is actually not seen nor by DAC donors, neither by DAC donors, nor by non-DAC donors, neither in international, and intergovernmental agencies. That prioritization is not there. That is what this paper addresses. When I talked about this research, that is what exactly I am addressing, that we need more academic discourse actually on this instead of just on the policy discourse.
Yeah, actually we need more scientific, understandings as well to back these academic discussions and as well as policy discussions. Thank you so much, and it was thank you all for cooperating to make this session such a lively one and also so much full of information, and I learned a lot. So I would like now to hand it over to Pramod or the nice organizers and to give a vote of thanks.
Distinguished chair, speakers, ladies and gentlemen, hope I'm audible to all of you. As we come to the end of this session, I deem it a great honor to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of the Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement, and to all of us who have graced us with their presence and contributed their parts to make this event a resounding success. First of all, we would like to express our profuse gratitude and sincere thanks to Dr. Mirza Zulfiqur Rahman for agreeing to chair and moderate the session today. Thank you, sir. Our sincere thanks also goes to all our speakers for being a part of the event and delivering such comprehensive and convincing presentations. We are really honored to have all of the speakers here with us today, and we thank them for their time. We would also like to acknowledge our gratitude to our friends from the diplomatic community, experts, academia, media, and different organizations. Finally, I must mention our deep sense of gratitude to our deep sense of gratitude and appreciation for our audience who participated in the webinar and those who are watching us live on our YouTube channel. Thank you for your valuable time and attention and for making the session productive with your questions. We're truly honored to have you all with us this evening, and we hope to stay connected with you in the future as well. It's really been a pleasure, and I also request all of you to please join us for our next session. The Zoom meeting link and password can be found in our session schedule on our social media channels. Thank you so much. Pramod sir, please take over.